I'm Dr. Troy Spurl, and our podcast is Synapse SNPS. Our podcast teaches people about how the body is supposed to work, basically how we were innately made. Have you ever wondered why you get headaches? Ever wondered why you wake up and your feet don't work in the morning and they're achy, and then as you get walking, it gets better? Have you ever wondered why you don't remember your dreams? Have you ever wondered why you're gaining weight even though you're eating right, you're exercising, and the weight keeps coming on? Have you ever wondered why you're just feeling depressed? It's hard to get up off the couch. If you ever wondered about why you feel these things and why you're not just feeling right, listen to our podcast to get the answers. We get to the root cause and we tell you why. Make sure you're listening to Synapse SNPS each and every week where we answer the questions that you guys have. Also, you can find us at officialsynapse.com. That's official Synapse, SYNAPSE.com.
Hello, it's Dr. Troy with Synapse SNPS, joined today with Mackenzie. So we're very excited to be talking about mast cell, which is a little bit weird because not many people get excited about mast cell, but Mackenzie does. So Mackenzie's here because we've been working with mast cell, and I want people to just hear your story a little bit. You've put a lot of work and effort into it. There's been ups and downs. You're nowhere near the end of the journey, but I want people to just hear your story, number one, know that there's hope, number two, and then also hear some of the new things that I'm going to talk about from a healthcare perspective.
Yeah.
So let's just start with a little bit about your journey. How did it start? When did it start? And then just be open and honest about some of your worst symptoms.
Yes. So my journey, so I've always been kind of a sick kid, asthma, eczema, the whole shebang. But I didn't start experiencing these severe reactions until after the COVID vaccine. I got it because I was going on a trip with my family. On the trip, I was swollen shut. My eyes were swollen shut. I couldn't breathe. After that, shortly, we rushed to Mayo Clinic. Bunch of tests later, I kind of landed in a spot where no one could tell me what was wrong. No one could. I was expressing what I was feeling. I was feeling extreme fatigue. And a lot of this, too, is I didn't know what I was feeling until I saw you, and you kind of put words to what I was feeling for the first time, which was extremely validating. But I was dealing with some asthma problems. I had eczema from head to toe. I had steroid withdrawal, and I was just blistering. My sisters and my mom had to shower me. I couldn't stand up most of the time. I was throwing up a lot. And everything that the world, I was reacting to the world. Literally.
That's the best way to say it. Literally everything. Reacting to the world.
Literally
perfumes.
Everything.
Food.
Yes.
Air quality.
It was, I couldn't go outside sometimes. There would be one day a cracker, I would be fine. The next day I ate a cracker and my eyes were swollen shut. And it was extremely hard. I went through some very, very dark times and it was difficult. I sought out a holistic doctor who helped me with my mental health. I was on unfortunately, a lot of antidepressants, because there is a mental component of it.
Absolutely.
And it's really, really hard. And I was struggling a lot. And so I was being over medicated. I was seeing doctors. They were putting me on more medications. I was having symptoms. So I was being put on medications for those symptoms. And at one point, I had two massive pill containers that I was taking morning and night. And it was just popping pills all the time, wasn't getting any better. Saw a holistic doctor, and that went a little sideways, but she did take me off all of that medication, which helped my mental health extremely. But that is where I learned that if you rush into curing it, and I am like full speed, 100% everything. Like if I want something, I'm going to go get it and I'm going to go 100%, and you can't with mast cell.
Yeah. I want to just explain this for people because Mackenzie's very unique this way with a lot of my mast cell. Cause she comes in and she's like, I have extreme amount of fatigue, but she said it like like a squirrel on cocaine. So it's one of those scenarios where I'm like, really, do you have fatigue? Because you come across as this high energy person, which is true. So she was high energy and she had a massive amount of fatigue.
Yeah.
When we actually did some of the lab workup, we saw mitochondrial compromise, which was the validation for her fatigue at a cellular level. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, man, you are a unicorn. This is going to be great to work with you. I love this. So talk a little bit about just, because the mental side of this is really important. And there's going to be a lot of people struggling and suffering because they don't feel like there's an answer. They don't feel like they have hope. The medications are, I just want to walk people through this part of it. Histamine, which is a part of the mast cell disorder, histamine is a neurotransmitter. It's a stimulator for the brain. So a lot of people will have insomnia. A lot of people will not be able to sleep properly. Yes. So the actual stimulation of the brain, the neurotransmitter part of it, will mess up other neurotransmitters. And so the medications, although well-intentioned, that's kind of like trying to actually take a bucket to empty out water in front of a dam that has rushing river just coming right at it. Yeah. And so it's not really getting to the root cause of the problem either. So it can be a bit of a safety net, but also most people notice what you did. They notice that actually it's not quite helping like it should, and eventually it actually becomes detrimental.
Yes.
And that's when people really get into a dark, dark spot.
Yes.
And so not that I want to throw this out there, but suicide rates are high with people because they don't have hope, and they're on medications that are actually not just covering up the root cause, but are actually interfering with the healing process. So I'm very thankful for that practitioner because they made my job easier, because I would have had to do that first.
Yeah.
Starting out, because that's the first thing we look at, because not only do you react to the world, but medications are broken down in the liver and kidney system. Yeah. And those are the two systems we have to keep clean and clear. It's one of the first things we worked on was your GI tract and trying to get some of the actual reactivity down. So yeah, I'm very thankful for that practitioner.
Yeah, it was a journey. That is the one thing I'm the most thankful. It ended badly because we were rushing into it, yeah. And my body reversed, ended up in the hospital, very sick, but there was a shift in my mental health. Yeah. There was a shift, and I think that was the first time where you talked about insomnia. I would stay up for days. Yeah. I wouldn't sleep, which contributed to the mental health. I was in a spot where I didn't see the light. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm a very positive, optimistic person. So it was bizarre for my family to see. It was bizarre for my friends to see. I kind of became a different person. But honestly, the biggest thing that I lean on is just to trick your mind. You have to be like, you got to keep going. You got to keep going and exhaust your resources. And I was not going to be complacent with how I was living my life, and I wanted to keep going. And I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, and it wasn't until I met you, there was all of a sudden just my hope. Everything just lifted, and it was very validating. And I think that's why I've been making such strides, is because of, putting words to how I've been feeling. But it's just been incredible to see the difference, but also learn why things are happening. Yeah. It was bizarre. I'd tell you things and you'd be like, well, it's because of this. And I'd be like, I never would have known that. But
I find that that's one of the biggest things. Connecting the dots is so important in this scenario because it's so complex. It's I say like Mackenzie's a 10,000 piece puzzle, and we had to get the borders first. And if you remember when we first started, you wanted to go. You're like, I'm exhausted. I'm all in. I'm exhausted. I'm all in. And so I'm like, we need to slow down. And so that was part of the process, is really just being slow and methodical to turn over every rock and say, okay, what is causing what? And then make sense of it. And then we found out pretty quickly how you just couldn't tolerate much of anything. Yeah. And so we had to get certain systems working. Our first system we worked on was sleep. So I don't know if you remember, but we found almost everyone with mast cell has a sleep disorder. I want you to hear that. Not almost. Everyone with mast cell has a sleep disorder. You have to find the sleep disorder. So we suspect you have 2 to 3 different types of sleep disorders, histamine being one of them, but one called upper airway resistance syndrome. It's very, very common, where we actually get a tension in the back of the neck. It shuts down the airway on the front, so you don't get proper oxygen at nighttime. So if your brain's not getting oxygen while you're sleeping, what does it do? It sends an alert to your adrenal glands to release adrenaline. And so I don't know if you guys know this, but when you get an adrenaline release in the middle of deep sleep, not a good thing.
You're up.
You are up instantly. So sometimes heart races, sometimes you break out into a sweat. A lot of different things can happen. But I want my mast cell people to hear this part of it. Every time you release adrenaline and it circulates in your bloodstream, all of the macrophages and the mast cells that are in your body will release histamine. So you will wake up swollen. So some of you don't even wake up when you release the adrenaline because you've gotten so used to it. But you wake up swollen the next morning. And it's because of your dreams that have just released adrenaline, because of lack of oxygen that has just released adrenaline. So one of the things we did with you was I actually had to slow down your workouts.
Yeah, that sucked.
Yes. So you were my 10%er, because 90% of the people I have to kind of kick in the butt to get them moving. But there's thresholds. I want people to really get this, because this is kind of where that first practitioner kind of missed the boat a little bit.
Yeah.
There's an upper and lower threshold. You have to do enough to stimulate your system, but if you overstimulate it, you exceed the metabolic capacity of the cells. So what ends up happening is your cells can't tolerate it, and they have a stress reaction.
Yeah.
If you remember, the first thing I said we needed to do is get you out of fight or flight. Minimize all the mental, chemical, and physical stressors as much as possible, so then we can see foundationally what's working, what's not working.
Yeah.
So part of your stress was you were overtraining.
I could be at the gym for 3+ hours.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. It was also a release of something that like I would always go to. And I played college soccer, and I played out of college, and still do. But I started noticing, and I thought the biggest roadblock is like, I would start feeling sick, work harder. Like,
Yep.
that was my mindset. And it was hurting me, and I didn't know that, but that was hard. That was a difficult one. But I have now noticed that I'm at the gym, I'm working hard, I want to keep going, but I can feel it in my body. My face will start to flush, my legs will start to get swollen, my shoes will get tight, and I'm like, okay,
Time to stop.
Dr. Troy would slap me on the hand right now.
Yes.
It's time to stop.
I love that people see that image of me slapping them on the hand. Like, that actually warms my heart. But we also know that if you don't work out,
Yes.
the same thing happens.
Yep. If I don't move my body, it's
So we've got a range. And so everyone's going to have that range, because I have some people with mast cell who are bedridden, and we need to get them up and out of that bed, even if it's 5-10 minutes at a time. And then we have people like yourself where we have to kind of reel it in a little bit to work within the capacity that your body allows. So one of the other things that we're going to talk about is some of the other triggers, because you had mentioned that even different sicknesses as a child and stuff like that. So we had predisposing factors there.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with the digestive system. So it's very common to have a sleep disorder and to even have leaky gut. That's a big common component. And a lot of people with mast cell disorder have what we call LPS toxicity. That's not one of your scenarios, but LPS toxicity is when you have leaky gut and you have these little lipopolysaccharides is what it stands for. They flake off and they become neurotoxic. So a lot of people with mast cell, when they get that level of leaky gut, it affects their brain. It's a neurotoxin. You don't have that, which is one of the reasons why I think like your positive mental outlook and attitude is still so good. And one of the reasons why I want to have you on here, because her personality is infectious. So I just want to walk her through the clinic just to have her talk, because there'll be healing that all the other patients go through just from having Mackenzie walk through the clinic.
Well, that's mainly from my support system. They
Yeah.
have there has been times where like I wouldn't want to do it. I didn't have a choice. I was pulling back up, thrown back into it, and just like keep going. So that it's big. It has helped me immensely. My mental health is just to surround yourself by people who like push you to get better and push you to get there, because you know you're going to get there at some point.
We're also going to talk about at this point overdone strengths, because your strengths, which this is your strength, and so it's very foundationally helpful in problem solving mast cell. That's why one of the reasons why you're here. But all of our strengths, when they become overdone, they become our biggest weaknesses. So if my strength is confidence and I become overconfident, it becomes arrogance, and that works against me. If your strength is to support people and you oversupport, you become self-sacrificing or a victim. And people who push through things, their weakness is their inability to surrender.
Yep.
And so that's one of the challenges, and it's very, very common that we have to at some point surrender to then be operating out of our full control. It's a bizarre concept, but that's one of the things that you did.
Yep.
And you learn, and you're learning to actually stop when you're supposed to stop instead of push through it, and when to push through it.
Yeah.
So there's always a learning involved with mast cell, because you're going to find certain things work for you and then they don't. Instead of writing them off, you just have to do less of it. So what's easier? Do more of something you're not good at, or do less of something you're really good at? Do less of something you're really good at. So that's why people say, I tried this and it didn't work with mast cell. Because you can have a cracker one day and it'll be fine. Cracker the next day,
Every day's different.
and you blow up. That's exactly right. It's not a linear problem. So that's why it's like a 5-dimensional puzzle that's a 10,000 piece puzzle, and you have to just be very methodical with it, but also pay attention and not just dismiss things right away. And putting the puzzle pieces together, that is my job, but you will learn more about what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
Yeah.
You've done that.
A lot of trial and error.
A lot of trial and error.
I had a notebook, and
Yes.
everything I put on my body, I put in my mouth, everything I interacted with, I wrote it down. Things that didn't work, I would cross it off. And I had a massive notebook, sticky notes everywhere, but it was very demanding, and you have to be very demanding in order to whittle that down. But it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
No, this is not an easy lift.
No.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the things we've worked on, and then I'm going to talk about some of the things that we know that contribute to mast cell as far as how to actually come out of it and to get away from it. So the first thing is, for me, restoring sleep and digestion. You've got to work on sleep and digestion. So we worked on that with you right out of the gates. We started seeing some benefit. The way we do it, we test muscles, and one of my favorite tests is that we do this marching test, right?
Oh gosh.
So where you close your eyes, you march to test if you're in fight or flight. We have other equipment that measures it as well. But I will never forget your initial response, because you marched 10 steps forward and you turned 180 degrees with your eyes closed.
And I thought I didn't move.
And she thought she nailed it. And if you know Mackenzie, she's very, very competitive.
Very.
And so that one was a little disruptive with like, why, how? But
I struggled.
You struggled with that one as far as the results. But we redid that test today.
Yeah, you did good.
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Yes. And so it was almost a pass, actually. So that was significantly better, 90% better. So with that being said, sleep and digestion, we really focused on that. So we know that pretty much all foods still irritate your system, but there are going to be certain foods, high histamine foods, that are going to be harder on the system, hard to digest foods. So when you're not sleeping properly and you're stuck in fight or flight, you can't be in rest and digest. So that means you don't make as many digestive enzymes, you don't make as many stomach acid, it does not produce as much. So the quantity and the quality of the food really matters. Yeah. So when you eat matters, how much you eat does matter. And then as we improve that system, one of the other things we found with you is your intestines would actually tighten and spasm. So even today we had to reset one of the valves. Yeah. And what happened to the weak muscles that you had that we measured when we actually reset that valve?
They all strengthened.
They all strengthened.
It was so weird, but it worked.
Yeah, so our body will shut down certain mechanisms when something's not quite working. So this is how we always say the body gives us clues. So your body, with what was working, what was not working with muscles, gave us clues as to what to actually start to work on. So digestive system. Also, talk a little bit about how you can actually be feeling pretty good and then swell up like something that swells up a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, before coming in here, that was happening. And I was like, what's going on? I would eat like every 2 hours, very small. That's where I found the most success without that weight in my stomach causing the swelling. All of a sudden, I would be sitting at my computer and my legs, my socks would get really tight. My legs would start like aching and my legs would just swell up. And I coach soccer at a soccer game, sitting in the sun. All of a sudden, my legs just swell up. I mean, it was nothing I ate. It was nothing. And that was the biggest thing is sometimes it's not what we do. It's not what you eat. It's not what you're around. Sometimes it just happens from your environment that you're around. And so that was the hardest things to unlearn, where whenever something happened, I go, okay, what did I do to make this happen? Yeah. And that's not always the case. And it just sometimes randomly happens, and you can't you will drive yourself crazy trying to figure out, okay, this caused this, and it's not a 1-to-1 match.
No, it's still important for us as the doctors to know about that, because even what you just described, I'm going to walk through that, because these are 3 different things that can trigger the mast cells from being released. Number 1, we talked about ileocecal valve. When your ileocecal valve spasms, it causes lymph to go down into your legs. It also causes tension in the back of the neck, which can trigger that sleep disorder. So there's a 1-2 punch there. So just massaging that valve is something that's very, very important. And a lot of times it's good, healthy food like raw fruits and vegetables that triggers that valve. Fiber can trigger that valve. Things like caffeine and sugar are the worst culprits, of course, but just massaging it can stop the swelling down into the legs, number 1. Number 2, physical disruption. So a twist in the pelvis. You being a soccer player, even today we found a hip issue that we had to reset.
Yep.
Once we reset it, what did you notice as far as just the circulation?
All of my legs started like tingling, and I just felt blood flow, and I felt pressure release from my body, like from my calves, my quads, and I was like, this feels great. Like that, it's just a relieving feeling. And it's when I say like, oh, I'm swollen, I tell my mom or my friends, they're like, you don't look swollen. And it's like, that's not the point. Like it is such a debilitating feeling.
It's an internal pressure.
Yes.
And so basically it's a swelling on the inside. So picture hives and swelling, your skin pushes out.
Yep.
Well, that's what's happening on the inside. And this is one of the things I really want to talk about, because it's missed a lot of times. So sometimes a physical muscle spasm, physical imbalance will cause an actual circulation issue with your veins and your arteries. And you have mast cells on the outside of your veins. So every time your veins contract or get compressed, you're going to release histamine with people with mast cell disorder. So they're basically ready to be triggered at any time. So what causes changes in the actual venous pressure? Overextending your workouts, working too hard can do it. Overheating the body, your body temperature. If it gets too hot or too cold, can do it. And all of a sudden the veins will relax, or the blood vessels will dilate or constrict, depending on that, and that'll cause pressure against those veins. One of the other things that can do it, muscle spasms. Like your hip today was actually shifted. The muscles would spasm just by helping that physical condition. It improved the blood flow. Another thing it can do, especially with women, is their cycle. When you swell with a cycle, the uterus can literally, it swells up and it can tip forward or back. And that can put pressure against your venous system. And that's actually something we worked on with you as well.
Yes.
And was quite impactful, actually.
Oh,
You want
it
to talk
was
about that?
massively impactful. So previously I would have, anytime my period would come around, I would have the worst mast cell symptoms. I would feel sick, and it wasn't just physical, it was psychological. I would all of a sudden feel a lot of anxiety. I would feel a lot of depression out of nowhere, which a lot of women do deal with.
Yeah.
But mine would just come out of left field, and my body would swell. I would get rashes covering my face and my body and my arms. And the bloating and pressure in my stomach, but majority is the swelling in my joints, where it would hurt to bend my arms, it would hurt to bend my knees, and I couldn't walk sometimes because it hurt so bad. After talking with you and chatting with you, and we worked on the uterine lifts, I did it religiously, like 6 times a day. And you actually said, okay, Kenzie, back off.
Slow that roll.
You can bruise yourself.
Yes.
But I, all of a sudden, the next month came around, and I all of a sudden got my period, and I was like, wait a minute, where did the swelling go? Where did the anxiety attacks go? And it was the biggest eye opener and shift of being like, okay, that was not normal. I knew it wasn't normal. A lot of women actually deal with that.
Yeah.
It's not normal. And just doing that and being religiously doing it, and it changed everything.
And it was a simple exercise.
It
you can do
was
at
so
home, right?
simple.
Yeah.
It was so, and you can even get a little core action, but it was so simple. And that was just a great example of the smallest little details can make the biggest differences.
Yeah, and that's why we don't rush through things, because if you're making these big system changes, but you're missing those little things that are contributing, then that can be there causing problems afterwards, and you'll think that the other treatments aren't working.
Yeah.
So that's why getting through a lot of these similar things that can cause that the pressure changes. That's what we're now working with. We're at a stage where we're now working on one of the last things that can contribute to the mast cell, and then working on down regulation with your immune system. So one of the things I want to talk about is a little bit with the lab work, because a lot of people with mast cell, they get their labs done, they know about tryptase, they know about plasma histamine. One of the things that we found with you was that vitamin D was really low.
Yeah.
And vitamin D is your main immune hormone. And so you need good vitamin D levels to manage the immune system. So other things that can trigger a lot of the mast cell stuff are infections, spike protein. In your case, spike protein was the tipping point. But I believe you had some of the immune stuff prior to this, hence being sick more when you're a kid and things of that nature. So there's a predisposing factors. Make sure the doctors are checking your immune system, the cytokines, the vitamin D, the different parts of the immune system that actually help fight infection. The spike protein of COVID and from the vaccines actually down regulates T cell memory. It shuts down, similar to HIV AIDS, acquired immune deficiency, not as severe, so don't read that part of it. Although you're going to see in the medical literature, they're actually now labeling long haul COVIDs as an AIDS type of disorder now. So you are seeing that in the literature. But the spike protein down regulates memory T cells, which means your immune system forgets that you had a previous infection of a certain type, so you can get reactivated viruses. Yeah. So women or men who had mono will all of a sudden get reactivated mono. Reactivated cytomegalovirus. Those are the two most common. Reactivated Lyme. So we have patients coming in with Lyme who never even knew they had it the first time, and they now have positive Lyme because their immune system that was keeping it at bay has become compromised. So you have to boost the immune system part of it. And that's kind of the phase we're at with you right now, is looking at the vasculature and how things are flowing, as well as the health of the immune system, which really is going, we're now working on stuff that's probably been there 20 years, that we're just kind of cleaning up that stuff. So we've got our good regimen. We've got a very compliant patient, I'm going to say, where I have to tell her to slow down. I can't wait to say, just have at her.
Take
just go.
off.
Just
I'm
go.
gonna go.
Yes. And then I'll see her in the Olympics doing something. I don't know. If they have Olympic gum chewing, she'll be there, whatever it is. So with that being said, I want people to really hear that there are solutions that are temporary steps to get you to the next level, then the next level. And now we're starting to piece together. There's more research. I was just down in Atlanta. It's actually, they started a new journal from that conference. And the doctors down there that are having discussions about what's going on, it's the number of brains and just the ideas, it's so inspiring. So I want people to have hope that there's a lot of good doctors that are coming up with solutions for complex problems, because we're seeing more. I think I mentioned to you, I would see mast cell disorder once in a blue moon, once a month. Yeah. And just last week we had 6 come in. And now we're seeing between 4 and 6 weekly, pretty commonly.
Welcome to the club.
Yes. So it's a good club to be in. The I used to have mast cell.
Yeah.
That's the club we really want.
That's the objective.
That is the objective. So any last words of encouragement, anything else you want to share for the people who are struggling, going through mast cell issues?
I would say just keep going. There are times, like I said previously, that I wanted to give up, and this is a very difficult disease, and what you're feeling is valid, and don't let anyone or any doctor tell you that you're crazy when you have a symptom or it's all in your head, because it's not. And I have dealt with it, and I still deal with it. There are times where I struggle to acknowledge, okay, this is real. But the biggest thing is trick your mind and trust that there's the light at the end of the tunnel, and there's hope. And there's so much research, and there's so much success that patients that have had this are able to reach and are able to have a better quality of life. And honestly, I would love to be your friend if you have mast cell. I love talking to people who have it. I've been a part of some support groups. It also just makes you feel like you're not alone. Yeah. So if you want to chat with me, Tell Dr. Troy.
Hit
'cause
us up. We'll
would
put you in contact.
I would love to talk with someone who's dealing with it, because sometimes it's just easier. You can talk to your friends, you can parents, and even you, but someone who knows it, someone who's, oh, I'm swollen, or I got rashes, or just I have had a lot of like anxiety today because of something I ate. It's like, I get it. And you're not alone, but there is so much hope in this specific clinic. And I want to say thank you to you, because I've always been a hopeful person, but my new level of hope is unmeasurable now, from where I was. And I can't put into words. I can't express it, but there is better quality of life, and you will get there. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And for the guys watching this, she is taken. I'm just going to say that. Hands off. She is taken. All right. Thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you for joining us today. And God bless all of you. I hope this blesses you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Synapse SNPS podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast and share the podcast. To learn more, check out our website at www.officialsynapse.com. Until next time, this has been Synapse SNPS podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. This podcast is for information purposes only and should under no circumstances be considered medical advice or a substitute for medical care. Any information given in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease and is at the user's own risk. Please first consult a licensed healthcare professional.